Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Pietrandrea Hough for After Alcohol Free Magazine, and I have the great pleasure today of being here with LP O'Brien, mixologist, TV personality, and entrepreneur who is known as the winner of the first season of Drink Masters. Congratulations. Very
Thank
exciting.
you.
And also the founder of LP Drinks Co., a co-owner of the beverage company Sippany Spritz, and founder of Focus on Health, which focuses on wellness in the food and beverage industry. So welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for
Hi.
having me.
Absolutely. I'm glad to chat with you. And thank you for being on our fall cover.
Yes, yes, yes.
Um,
So exciting. I've
it's
never
so
been asked to
exciting.
be on a cover before.
I, I've had a few who said that. I'm just honored to be the first one. So we have a lot to talk about. You have a lot on your plate. I was hoping to start maybe in the middle because my first awareness of you was actually when you created the mocktail for the Emmys dinner.
hmm
So can you tell me how that came about? And
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
um,
So there's an amazing bartender based in Chicago named Charles Julie, who is a mentor friend of mine, and I just adore him. And he had the opportunity to kind of add someone to bartend the Emmys with him, and he picked me to do it. And I had the opportunity to create a serve for the Emmys. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I was like, oh, can we do non-alcoholic? Just because that's where my mind always goes. I always want to be inclusive, right? And
yeah.
there are actually quite a few celebrities that are sober. So I figured it
Mhm.
might be a great option. And I ended up making this beautiful clarified milk punch that was NA. And it was this vibrant purple color. It was delicious and it was such a hit. And I had so much fun serving that drink. But yeah, it was a pretty amazing moment.
Yeah. That felt to me, just learning about it. I mean, first of all, it was like splashed everywhere in the alcohol free community. Like, can you believe that this has happened? It felt like a culturally significant moment to be so mainstream.
I think so too. And at the moment, I didn't realize it. I think
Hmm.
I just did it because I was just trying to be forward thinking and inclusive. And I think the aftermath was kind of, no pun intended, but the aftermath was really awesome for the reasons you just pointed out. You know, people were like, "Oh my gosh, can you believe that there's this option?" And it's so craft oriented in the way that
Hmm.
it's been produced. And yeah, it was cool. It was really cool.
I think I hear time and time again that people appreciate um, like an alcohol-free beverage with some thought behind it, with some sophisticated flavors that you don't really see all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And yeah, shout out to Rare Tea Sellers in Chicago. So they supplied there's an ingredient called Blue Seal Matcha, which is a combination of butterfly pea flower and blue matcha. So it had that beautiful texture of matcha. Uh,
Mm.
and then, the flavor as well with a little bit of butterfly pea flower that gave it that pop of purple, which was awesome.
Yeah, it was beautiful. We'll
Yeah,
post some kind of picture or a link maybe
yeah,
to
for
that
sure.
product if they offer that online. I actually you were kind enough to share that recipe with me and I tried to make it myself and then I was like I need some
It's
additional
hard.
skills. I need some more skills. Yeah.
But you know what's so funny?
Yeah.
I remember when you asked about it, it was like immediately after it had been released in press. And I remember being like, oh, that's so awesome that this individual wants to like recreate it. And I was like, oh, this is cool. But in my mind, I was also thinking like, I really hope that the instructions are clear. But I don't know if I actually said this to you in the moment. It's a clarified milk punch. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's essentially a process in which you can create clarified drinks. Usually, historically, it's with the introduction of alcohol, acid with milk.
Mm.
Then the process of curdling occurs, and you're able to strain off the curdle and that cloudiness, and you get this crisp, clear drink. The challenge was that
Mhm.
we not only decided to make a non-alcoholic um, clarified milk punch, but we also did it with a non-dairy milk, which was
Oh.
crazy. So
Oh,
the prompt
forgot about
was
that part.
a lot more challenging than it probably typically would have been. So I'll have to show you how to do it in person.
Right. So, I mean, obviously you did it, so it's possible, but I didn't know you could curdle like non-dairy milk.
Yeah, exactly. So we use soy milk in that recipe and you can. It
Yeah.
just you just have to make sure you're doing it in very, very slowly and intricately following the instructions.
Right. Well, it was beautiful, and we'll write more about that, the recipe itself and everything. But yeah, so it sounds like the response to it was really wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was quite cool. And then, seeing your favorite celebrities take a sip of your drink and then ask, what's in it and then follow up with, oh, there's no alcohol. This is delicious was so amazing. It was
Mhm.
it was surreal.
Yeah. So what lessons, like what's the takeaway here for the non-alc world as a whole? I feel like there's been obviously so much progress, and then also just so many restaurants that are not on board yet. you know, how to
Yeah.
create, what's the secret to creating something that's interesting, but maybe a little bit more accessible, but interesting and layered, and without the alcohol, without the being able to preserve it in that way, without that bite. That's the secret.
Yeah, I think it honestly just starts with the desire to want to have options for your guest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same way we have versatility on the menus in our bars, in our restaurants, in our spaces with alcohol options. I think it's just as important to have options, obviously, for those who don't drink.
Mm-hmm.
But it's much more than just that because you can add soda or lemonade or iced tea to your list or your menu without any complication. But I think when we are in these spaces, especially the 1% that are really creating experiences for our guests, we want to ensure that we're able to curate a very similar experience. Honestly, in my opinion, if not better than what you would get,
Mm-hmm.
if you were just imbibing with drinks that have alcohol as an option. So, what I like to say to a lot of my clients when I'm going in to consult and help them with their menus is there are a couple of things you want to take into consideration, right? The overall appearance of your drink, is it just as aesthetically pleasing and beautiful and decadent as any other drink that you would get?
Mm-hmm.
We have to take into consideration the lack of texture
Mm-hmm.
with non-alcoholic drinks because they don't have alcohol. They don't really sit on our palate in the same way. So we
Right.
have to compensate for that by adding things such as, a richer styled syrup or carbonation or something like egg white or foam, right? So that it
Mm-hmm.
kind of plays with different parts of our palate. And additionally, complexity in a drink, whether that is by adding something like a cordial, maybe a concentrated tea to incorporate tannin, or adding something like a shrub or something that has vinegar in it.
Mm-hmm.
And really considering the ways in which we can elevate one's taste buds, but also, again, add complexity to a drink. And you can do that a multitude of ways. But I
Right.
think the real challenge is again, elevating that experience, and finding a balance. We have a large community of individuals who don't drink for whatever reason they choose not to. And what we're finding is we really need to ensure that we have options for individuals that mimic drinks that they are familiar with, but then some that don't.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is I was actually talking to Derek Brown about this recently. The way our brains are wired and even our palates is the act of like tasting things that
Mm-hmm.
are similar in taste to alcohol. It triggers something in our brain that can make our bodies react to an NA in a very similar manner that they would if we were imbibing and drinking alcohol.
Right.
And for that reason, we have to be very conscious of the options we have because there are a lot of people who are sober who don't drink specifically because of that reason, right? They
Mm-hmm.
can't drink things that taste like alcohol because it just puts them in a position that is not ideal, right?
Right.
Which is not something I considered initially when I was entering this space. But as
Mm-hmm.
I've, I've had conversations with individuals and been able to do this, it has been interesting to really gain a better understanding of the ways in which we really need to ensure that we are not only providing options, but providing options that really do allow people to protect themselves, right?
Hmm. Right. I like this inclusive approach. It sounds like everything you're doing is coming from a very inclusive approach.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And we have, I mean, we do have a lot of mocktails in the magazine and our website, but we always include a blurb like, if this is not for you, then it's not for you. This is not the suggestion that you should do this or that that has to be part of your sobriety. And I find it's funny what you said, like the taste bud, it's like your sense of smell can bring back your childhood. So in like a second, it's that it's your taste and smell brings back memories. And it
Of
might not,
course.
for me, it like I didn't get it at first. And then it was like, oh, I tried something that was similar to what used to be my drink of choice. And then I was like, oh, I get it. Like I feel it in a
Yeah.
different way. And
I
yeah.
actually had a very so I'm almost a year sober, and I actually had a very similar encountering recently, and I didn't realize up until that point how sensitive I was um to I guess being around alcohol.
Mm,
And I honestly, for the reasons I decided to quit, were one, I got pregnant, but two, it had been a thing in my mind that I just had been considering, when I was drinking alcohol for whatever reason, it just I wasn't reacting well to it.
hmm.
And you have those moments, not because you're over imbibing or anything, but I never really wanted to be that person who had those moments where it was like there were pieces of the night missing or whatever it may be, right? It's so
Right.
different for everyone. And so recently was at a birthday party at a bar, and everyone was drinking, and I realized how much more work I still have to do. I was super uncomfortable in the space I was in. The smell of being around alcohol, kind of put me in a place where it wasn't that I was craving the alcohol as much as I missed the ritual of drinking.
Right.
And
Right.
I had to make a decision for myself to, kind of just like leave. Uh, it was
Right.
the best decision for me in that moment, but it kind of opened a door of reflection. And I think approaching that year mark as well does that to you. That just made me
Mhm.
realize that I still have a little bit more work to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, interesting. It's funny that comes up. What you said about leaving, like that comes up time and again in this space. That's like, remember, you are allowed to leave. You're allowed to leave a social situation. You're allowed to be tired and go home. And I think when people are drinking, they get that. They just get going, and they don't leave. So then that's like a new thing, and you feel kind of lame. But I always say, like, drive yourself. Don't be the designated driver. Give yourself that option
Yeah,
if
for
you feel
sure.
how you felt in that situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're coming up on a year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And how has that informed the work that you do?
I think I'm a lot more present. I think there was a period of time when I was kind of just going through the motions, and, I was doing what I was doing, but not methodically and not with as much intention.
Mm,
And I feel a lot more whole. I think, I'm able to be a better, I mean, I'm a first-time mom, so I'm definitely able to be a better mom and a better wife and a better friend and definitely a better employee for myself. And it's certainly has allowed me to be a better taster as well, surprisingly. So I
mm,
actually just participated in the San Francisco World Spirits Competition, and they had me on the NA and RTD panel. And I love participating in things like that professionally because they really do allow me to be um, a lot better at tasting items, a lot better at being able to dissect flavor profiles and aromas, and I'm a much better consultant for it. I'm a much better
mm,
beverage professional altogether. But it was really cool being a part of the NA panel for the very first time. Um, because it's such a new category, right? And so
mhm,
for the very
mhm,
first time, we are deciding we have to create a balance between acknowledging what the consumer understands this to be, but then what we perceive and what we truly do believe is an exceptional example for said category, right?
Mhm.
So it was really cool to be a part of that. And I'm really excited to see what comes out of that as winners for sure.
Right. By the time this video comes out, that will be announced for
Yeah,
sure.
so by the
Yeah.
time this video comes out, it will be announced. So I'm excited to see, what ends up being medaled. And the products are just getting better and better every day. The options are becoming more versatile and the category is
Hmm.
becoming more expansive, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I think about I've been bartending for about 10 years now. 10 years ago, we didn't even have these as options. None of these things. So
Hmm.
it's really amazing to see, where we've come.
Yes. And where do you see the most innovation taking place?
I think spirits for sure.
Mm.
And we tried some NA rums that were outrageous. I didn't even
Wow.
know that they made NA rums, and
That's amazing.
at a certain point I was like, I almost like spit it out because I was like, does this have alcohol in it? Because it
Right.
was good.
That's the category I find most tastes like the real thing. It is
I find
natural.
that winemakers have an easier time creating
Mm.
a wine because they can de-alcoholize it. And
Hmm.
with that process, they're able to keep a lot of the things that we're lacking when we are creating NA spirits. I think that we're still trying to figure out like the nuances and the ins and outs of creating NA spirits, but I'm telling you, it is getting
Really
better.
good. It's so exciting. It really is. So as a consultant and a mixologist and bartender, are you focusing exclusively on the NA world now, or do you go back and forth?
I do offer both still.
Mm,
And it's mostly just because a lot of what I offer does land in that experiential space.
mm-hmm.
I mean, if you saw Drink Masters, you saw a lot of the stuff that we did. And my background is in science. I was a nurse for a few years and transitioning into food and beverage. I was able to years later to find a happy medium between being able to get a little geeky, with the ingredients that we put in our
Right.
drinks, which I think which helps me a lot when making NA drinks, right? Because of all the
Mhm.
things we have to compensate for. But I do love working with spirits. I love making drinks. I think that when we take some time to really think about the stories associated with the brands that we get to work with, there's so much history, there's so much culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think I'll ever stop working with spirits, but it is really fun to be in this space where I can also say, hey, what about your NA, what about your NA cocktails?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And then create something totally new, kind of out of thin air.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you mentioned Drink Masters. I feel like this is the question everyone asks. Can you tell me about that experience? How did this come about? How was the whole experience for you? And
Yeah, Drink Masters, we filmed about 2 years ago now, which is funny to say.
right.
And I mean it was a surreal experience, getting to be on a global platform and showcase your skill set. And it was one of those moments where I really had to challenge myself and
Mm.
leading up to it, I prepared as much as I could, working with my pastry chef and my savory chef, and flew to London to work with the team, overseas with the bar that I was working with at the time. And I really tried my best to learn as much as I could and to become as versatile as I could in preparing for this opportunity. The coolest part about it was being able to showcase my skill set in a way that really aligned with who I am as a creative. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and almost like an effortless way. And I say that, when you're prepared, then obviously you can kind of just figure out what works best or what fits best.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Looking back and thinking back on it, I'm really proud of what I did and what I put out there. A lot of it came from this place of wanting to just share a story or a moment that evoked emotion for me And one of the best things that someone said to me was, as creatives, as mixologists, we get to take pieces and parts of ourselves and give them to people to take with them for the rest of their lives. And I hope that I was able to do that with what I, did on the show. But the opportunity came about. There had been like a flyer circulating online about this opportunity to be a part of this new drink show. And I kind of eye rolled initially. I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. Like that doesn't sound fun. Who knew what I was really thinking internally? I think I was so busy with work, I just didn't have time to think about it.
Right.
And then I received an email one day from the casting producer saying, "Hey, you'd been recommended
Oh,
to
wow.
yeah, to be a part of this opportunity. Is this of interest to you?" And I went to my husband like, "Hey, this came up. I don't know. What do you think?" And he was like, "Well, why don't you just talk to your employer and see what they say?" And so I asked him, I was like, "Hey, like, what do you think about me being a part of this?" And they were like, "Oh, absolutely. Just let us know what
Huh.
you need and
Oh,
how you
cool.
need to be supported." Yeah,
That's nice.
it was really, really awesome. I worked
Yeah.
for a really amazing company, and I'm really lucky that they were able to let me do that. And yeah, so I say that all to say that was probably one of the scariest things I've ever done. And
Hmm.
I'm so happy I did it. And I often tell people do the things that scare you the most because they are the most life-changing experiences.
Hmm.
And truly, truly is because I look at all the things I've gotten it done since then, and I've been able to do so much, been introduced to so many amazing individuals and folks because of that opportunity. So yeah, it was really
Yeah.
cool.
That's amazing. I feel like there are many life lessons in what you've just said. I mean, first of all, the idea of being prepared, allows you to open the door to creativity. It's like you have
Hmm.
to know the rules to break the rules. I feel like that's a really
Exactly.
life lesson, right? And then getting out of your comfort zone. I mean, it's huge for everyone, and it's huge for in sobriety when you're kind of rebuilding yourself,
Absolutely.
and the opportunities that come out of that are always wonderful. I feel like opportunity knocks every day once you do that.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. So out of the things you created for the show, which one you were saying that like you were able to express yourself, like which one do you feel expressed yourself, expressed you or the story you wanted to tell the most?
Probably my bodega cocktail. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's funny thinking back to the show and just all the amazing messages I got from people. I think that cocktail resonated with people the most, especially New Yorkers from the Bronx and people of color. They were like, "Oh man, girl, like the bodega drink, we love that. We know exactly what you were talking about." And it was so cool because I honestly was just taking an experience of going to a bodega, which is something I took
Mm-hmm.
for granted every day as a kid,
Right.
and recreated it to tell a story, right?
Do you
And
want to describe it, like what the cocktail itself
yeah.
is?
So the cocktail itself was inspired by in Fordham Road. I used to go to this bodega that sold like empanadas and alcapurrias and fried plantains and these beautiful tropical fruit drinks. And
Oh,
the
wow.
base of them was carnation milk. And when I was on the show, we were given the challenge of creating a beverage with fruit as the star, and I got guava. And guava was an ingredient predominantly used at this little like Puerto Rican bodega shop. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what I'm going to make, but obviously elevate it. So I did a blend of rums. I made what's called a guava elixir with coconut water. I used rice as obviously rice is an ingredient that's often used in Puerto Rican cuisine, and took commonly used spices and made like a rice orgeat, um, and then incorporated a molecular gastronomy approach, incorporating this ingredient called xanthan gum, which makes your frozen drinks very creamy and thick in consistency.
Mm,
And so it was combining, my skill set in research and development to make ingredients, my knowledge of incorporating these molecular gastronomy ingredients such as xanthan gum, and then just the lived experience of going to a bodega every day to create
right. That's
this
amazing.
delicious, yeah, basically like fruit smoothie um, that had a fried plantain served on the side. uh, like a tile that was reminiscent of tiles that you'd saw in a bodega, and then like a little mason jar with coffee beans because that was the first aroma you would get when you walked into a bodega.
Right.
And people lost their minds, and it was delicious. It was
But
so good.
yeah, I like how you took like the different elements and the chemistry and then the emotion and the personal story and make it all one. Of course, people lost their minds over that. How could they not?
Yeah, it was really cool. It was cool. So, I was able to create my pop-up bodega culture because of that drink on the show. Just a
Mm-hmm.
pop-up I've done in a couple of different cities, and we had the pleasure of doing it at Lincoln Center last year.
Oh, nice.
And
Yeah.
we got to build it out, and I worked with this amazing, amazing, amazing pop-up designer, Adriana. Oh, she killed it. It was so cool. And it was this immersive experience. And Lincoln Center, provided a chef that made all this delicious food, and I made the cocktails, and it was a really fun
Oh my
experience.
gosh. Amazing. That's incredible. Do you have
Yeah,
more of those coming up? Are you still
I
working on those?
do.
Yeah.
I do. The next one is happening in New York City during the Puerto Rican Day Parade, which is awesome.
Oh, awesome. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yay. Is there a website where people can learn about those pop-ups and
Yeah, so you can follow me at LP Drinks DC on Instagram or Bodega Culture _. Additionally, lpdrinks.org usually has all our information for our upcoming events as well.
okay, we'll send people to all of those. You mentioned well, you have two other things going on, but let's talk about focus on health for a minute too.
For
So
sure.
yeah, can you tell me a little bit about them?
Yeah, so Focus on Health is a company that actually was started by my partner Alex Jump for the most managed bartender competition in 2020. So 2020 was a difficult time as well.
Mm-hmm.
And what essentially happened was it was a platform that was supposed to focus on health and wellness resources for the food and beverage industry.
Mm-hmm.
COVID happened. I saw Alex was doing this thing, and I was curious as to what she was planning to do with it. So I reached out to her and asked if I could be a part of it. And then we created all of this amazing programming virtually for bartenders to take advantage of during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
We had an amazing turnout. We created an amazing community of individuals. And what it's now turned into is a platform that focuses on a couple of different things. We have our no low pop-up, which is no and low ABV beverages. And we activate at trade events. So that's the Tales of the Cocktails, BCB, San Diego Bartenders Weekend. And with all the events we do, we have an educational session that we offer as well.
Mm-hmm.
Really leaning into ways that bartenders and beverage professionals can be a bit more successful when creating no and low ABV beverages.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we are very lucky to be rolling out a couple of other programs that we have been wanting to offer for a really long time. So mental health first aid
Mm-hmm.
and Narcan training as well.
Mm-hmm.
And these are just some things, I mean, we offered a lot more in the past, but these are just the focuses that we felt were most important to place our efforts in. Um, we have a scholarship program that we allow bartenders in the industry to people who are having a bit of a difficult time
Mm-hmm.
accessing funds and resources to be able to attend some of these trade conferences that happen throughout the year. And so we were able to award a scholarship to 10 individuals last year to go to Tales of the Cocktail.
Oh,
And
great.
we're hoping another 10 individuals this year to be able to go, which is quite nice. So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, we're doing our best to offer what we can where we can, but Alex is really spearheading that. Huge kudos to her because what the platform has become is quite amazing.
Yeah, that is. I want to say this like with sensitivity. I don't, so my understanding of the food and beverage industry is that there is a lot of drinking that goes on and a lot of, like strange hours and maybe some challenges there. Is that something that you see? Or,
Yeah, for sure. It's certainly a
yeah,
recurring theme, which is why we feel that these topics that I just went over are things that are really important.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we have very, very, very peculiar schedules, and
Hmm.
there are many instances where the social drinking is occurring and happening, and at late hours because we start our shifts quite late and we get out quite late.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the change that I've seen that I think is really awesome is that there are a lot more organizations and companies advocating for food and beverage employees taking care of themselves. So we
Mm-hmm.
have a company in Canada called Not 9 to 5, Healthy Poor, based in the US, focus on health, which is us. There are a couple companies that emerged during COVID and unfortunately have not survived, but a couple of other companies as well. And it's just really cool to see that there are so many options now.
Right. Bringing a spotlight to that.
Yeah.
That's really nice. So tell me, what is next for you? What are you focusing on
Yeah.
forward? And
Yeah, so what's next for me? I have a couple of different projects in the works. I have a
Mhm.
book that's going to be coming out. So I'm
Awesome.
really excited for that. Can't tell you too much about that, but know that one is coming.
That's great.
Yeah, I have a brick and mortar concept that I'm working on. Maybe y'all will be the first to hear about it. I'm not sure.
Awesome.
We'll see.
We're going to
We'll
keep in touch with you every week. We're going to say, what's going on? What's going
see.
on? No, it's really
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, and I think as far as that, I can disclose that it will be focused on this experiential kind of aspect
Hmm.
and very focused on community and education, which is quite awesome. So
Yeah,
um, I'm really excited for the opportunity to do that.
that's really great. I feel like community and education are the two biggest things really in growing this alcohol-free world, and letting people know they're not alone. Those are really important things.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. So we always end with the same question, which is our tagline is we believe the best life begins after saying goodbye to alcohol. And what has your after looked like?
My after looks like motherhood, which is amazing.
Hmm.
I'm so grateful to be a mama to my sweet Namiko, and yeah, it's motivated me more than ever to do all the things I said I wanted to do, but never had an opportunity to get to. I'm telling you, if you want to get a to-do list done quick, just have a kid.
Right.
You'll get everything done.
Oh, that's so funny.
You'll be
Everything
more
done in
motivated.
1 hour a day that you
Yeah,
have free.
seriously. And the 1 hour day that you have because you're
Hmm.
so busy doing everything else. But yeah, she's definitely motivated me to be a better version of myself and to keep reaching for the stars and to achieve all the dreams that I have for myself. Because I want her to be confident in her ability to do the things that she might be scared to do.
Well, you're setting a great example.
I appreciate
It's
that. Thank you.
wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for talking with me. Thank
Yeah, of course.